the history of Uttar Pradesh, we would have floods in October. So the entire aspect of climate change affects everyone, and we should ingrain upon our people, our students, our children, that it is one area where everyone will have to come forward. तो हम हिंदी में कहते हैं कदम से कदम मिलाकर चलने के लिए हमें आगे बढ़ना है, and it is not a question of making people understand, it's a question of reaching their heart. दिल से काम करना है. We have to make it an emotive effort where everyone comes together. I am not an expert on climate change, but I can say this for sure. I have dealt with making of expressways, and I can tell you, it gave me more pleasure to plant trees along the expressways than to make the expressway itself. Because these trees, once they come up along the expressways, they are the beauty for this entire project. So I am so very happy that we are here all together. We have a large number of experts. I think I've taken 2 more minutes than what I planned to, but I am very emotive about this, and in whatever fashion, I would say experts all over the state, people who are retired, people who are retired teachers should all be brought together on one platform to work on projects approved by the GCF, and we should have a simple mechanism to apply and get projects approved. So with this, I would like to thank the moderator. I would like to welcome once again all the expert speakers. I'll be with you all along. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Awasthi. I just would like to just talk about the topic right now. The topic of this panel discussion is on potential prospects for Green Climate Fund. So I just want to, again, dig deeper into what are we really going to focus on during this panel discussion. We will talk about climate for smart investments, avenues available with international resources, challenges, issues, and accessing international resources, policy changes in recent times to enable public and private sector investment in climate finance, priority sectors which can leverage GCF investment, carbon sequestration potential of agroforestry systems, and then innovative approaches that state could promote for greater public engagement and avenues to tackle climate change. These are some of the focus areas that we will be focusing on while we will be talking through the different panel members in the discussion today. To start with, I have my colleague, Mr. Mayuresh Patange from the Private Sector Facility of the Green Climate Fund. And I would just like to ask you, Mayuresh, just to probably straight down, dig deeper into if you can elaborate on how we can mobilize compelling and profitable climate-smart investments and avenues available under the Green Climate Fund. And while you do that, if you can also elaborate on blended finance, because this is also something that keeps coming to GCF, especially with the private sector window and with from the government, for more elaboration. Over to you, Mr. Mayuresh.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. So thanks, Anupa, for the question. And now that I have a floor, I know we are constrained for time, but I want to just briefly take this opportunity to thank the Government of India and the Government of State of Uttar Pradesh for the excellent arrangements that they have made and for extending the invitation to us, and congratulate also to both the government, the central and state government, and also to the Ministry of Environment, Forest Change and Climate for this excellent conclave also. Now coming specifically to this, responding to this question, okay, thanks for noting that. So coming specific to responding to this question, so see GCF as an organization follows a model that is a country-driven model. By that what we mean is that, instead of GCF telling the countries, do this project or do the other project also, we suggest the countries, encourage the countries to identify what are the requirements which might be, driven from respective analysis of sector, the geographies, the state analysis also, identifying what the local partners are willing to invest, and then finding out, okay, what are the gaps which GCF can come and bridge, and also catalyze more investment. See, one of the mandate for GCF is, of course, financing climate change, but as well as catalyzing and encouraging other investors, kind of de-risking them to bring more capital into the climate change and in the countries also. So as very rightly, the theme for this conclave, which says that, sustainable finance for localization of climate action. So that localization of climate action is a very important thing, which is that the identification of problem has to happen at the ground level by the country, and maybe, thinking of some potential solutions and then approaching GCF and seeing, how we can bridge the gap and crowd in more investors also. So we are happy to de-risk. We are happy to ensure that the project becomes viable by GCF assuming some kind of risk, and the private sector and other co-financers are willing to invest also. So thank you. Happy to elaborate anything. I'll be available till tomorrow. So if any one of you wants to have bilateral conversations, I'm happy to chat. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mayuresh. And a round of applause for Mayuresh for his... a couple of things that I gathered from what Mayuresh mentioned is A, financing for climate change is important, and B, very important is catalyzing financing. So Green Climate Fund, in fact, can be your partner in terms of catalyzing financing. It's not only about GCF providing resources to the countries, but it's also about creating that platform where the co-investment can take place, and GCF's resources can be a catalyzer in de-risking capital, de-risking financing, and sustainable financing. So thanks so much, Mayuresh, for that. Let me now move to our direct access entity. In the GCF, we have two terms with whom we can work, where the resources can be channeled. One is international access entities, which are World Bank, ADB, UN agencies, GIZ, and others. But we also have a direct access entity portfolio. Direct access entities are among the national partners as well as regional partners. So SIDBI, the next speaker, Dr. R.K. Singh, so is a direct access entity to the Green Climate Fund. And we would like to probably ask you, and maybe for you to elaborate, your experiences of working with the Green Climate Fund and what SIDBI has been able to learn, understand, and share your experiences on the climate finance space. Over to you, Dr. R.K. Singh.
Yeah, thank you. So SIDBI, Small Industries Development Bank of India, is Apex financial institution. And we believe in two key principles. One is we take care of financing for development and development of financing. This is the one important thing. And second is we believe that financing of green cannot happen unless we green the financing. Means unless we embed in financing itself the environment and social governance aspects, this may take a lot of time to go about being done. As far as with GCF, like we have launched 5 proposals with GCF where we are looking at almost $350 million. Which can be leveraged 4 times investment in the country. But before we discuss more on that, I would say let me lay the pitching tough. We are talking about MSME, which is going to be the largest employer in the country. Second is, if we only talk about energy efficiency gap, which is there, it is around 90,000 crore. Third is, if we are talking about carbon neutralizing impact or investments needed, it is around $10 trillion which is required. So, yeah. So, now if we are talking about this, and then we are talking about more than 6,000 clusters within the country, where 4,000 clusters are micro clusters which need bottom-up support. If this has to be seen, then we need to have multiple projects to be funded in India. That is one. Second is the speed and essence which we were talking in earlier founding session. That is quite a essence. Because we have proposals which we have launched with GCF. This is from startup, fund of funds, like we manage fund of funds, so we are also working with startup domain. The entire value chain SIDBI takes care. So we are looking at equity, we are looking at term loan facility for channelizing. And so this is very crucial that different projects which we are packaging and putting up to GCF, that should be seen from a broader perspective. Thanks to GCF that they have supported us with a capacity building grant support, which is quite a good support in terms of building capacity internally and outside. So what in the meanwhile, while proposals are being sort of at different stages in GCF, what SIDBI has done is, as a DFI, where development first is our core theme, we have started working on A to E of access to finance and non-finance. We believe that unless we sensitize the bankers, the lending will not happen, because the bankability of green projects are very essential to be brought into the mindset of bankers. So SIDBI has almost built capacity of more than 500 bankers within SIDBI as also outside. And today last year we adopted from our own funds mission 1,000 solar rooftop. And we started in November, and by March we had done 700 cases, which I believe was a good starter attempt from our side. Then we are, when it comes to access to finance, we have right from startups to any green investments which can be done, to solar rooftop, end-to-end energy efficiency financing. We have all products, retail products with us. Second, we are looking at how do we refinance other institutions in terms of their supporting investments. B is bridging the gap. So we are working with micro clusters, like in UP, we are working with Moradabad cluster to enable coal-fired furnaces to convert into gas-fired furnaces. We did one project in Varanasi, which was Swachh Kashi, Swalambi Kashi, where we embedded the plastic recycling into livelihood. And this is how we work in a different way. We worked in Sundarbans from a project where we kindled subsistence to sustenance to greening the mangrove forest out there. So C is carbon neutrality. We believe that in order to tell or prescribe other to go for carbon neutrality, SIDBI itself is emerging a carbon neutral institution. So we have targeted that by 2024, SIDBI should become a carbon neutral institution. And D is digitally developmental, something which was which used to be thought of that it will take say a month or so for a green project to get finance. We have introduced digital tools, do-it-yourself tool, wherein we are able to now do cases within 3 to 4 days. We may bring it to hours. That is what is our ambition. And D is enabler. So we have picked up 5 missions, and I will close here because the tag has already come. The 5 missions which we have adopted is Mission EV 50,000. So the next financial year, we are going to work on electrical vehicles ecosystem 50,000. Mission 2,500 solar rooftop. We are going to invest 1,000 crore in energy efficiency. And fourth is ways to market taste. We are already working with GIZ and World Bank and AFD.
If you can
yeah, I will
start closing it, because we don't have time. Apologies.
So quickly, the idea is, if I would request GCF to look at this MSME as most critical contributor to the nation, and thus we should have several projects which are funded and considered by GCF.
Thank you so much, Dr. Singh. And apologies to cut you short. There's definitely so much to learn from you. And also one of the things that I picked up, and I think which I would like to highlight, is the capacity building aspect. Because with SIDBI, with the board, with the direct access entities who work with the GCF, we have a readiness project, and we have systems in place to provide capacity strengthening activities to the direct access entities. And thanks for highlighting that. We are supporting SIDBI, and hopefully SIDBI is going to get proposals very soon to the GCF. Now let's move on to Dr. Arun Kumar Pandey, Member Secretary of Chhattisgarh Biodiversity Board and Nodal Officer of Climate Change Chhattisgarh. So to you, sir, I would like if you can elaborate on the opportunities for climate finance in agroforestry sector and the interventions that you have made in Chhattisgarh, and what are the associated monitoring challenges? Since we are talking about international sources, I'm sure there's also about domestic sources as well, but focusing on climate finance. Over to you.
Thank you.
Pandey.
एग्रोफॉरेस्ट्री एज ए टूल ऑफ क्लाइमेट चेंज, इस पे मैं अपनी बात रखूंगा और बाद में आपने जो कहा कि फाइनेंसिंग के बारे में बात करूंगा। जब भी एग्रोफॉरेस्ट्री की बात मैं करता हूं तो इसके पहले क्योंकि लिमिटेड टाइम है, 2-3 चीज़ें मैं बोलना चाहूँगा। प्रोडक्शन फॉरेस्ट्री को लेकर मैं अपनी बात चालू करता हूँ। हम लोग जब एकेडमी में थे ट्रेनिंग में, तो हम लोगों ने वी read a very famous quote of forestry philosopher Jack Westoby. It says, if our forests do not give productivity equivalent to farmland, they will be converted into farmlands. इस quote को हमको मैं बहुत सोचता रहता हूँ, और हमने देखा कि जब FRA आया तो पता चला कि कितने बड़े क्षेत्र को फार्मलैंड में कन्वर्ट किया गया और हमने उसको रेगुलराइज किया। अब उसकी अन्य चीज़ों पे मैं नहीं जाऊंगा, मैं केवल प्रोडक्टिविटी की बात कर रहा हूँ। प्रोडक्टिविटी की बात यदि हम जंगलों की देखें और उसके बाद हम एग्रो फॉरेस्ट्री और ट्री आउटसाइड फॉरेस्ट की बात जो मैं करूँगा उस दोनों के बारे में एक उदाहरण मैं आपको देता हूँ। एक छोटा सा प्रेजेंटेशन है, उसको चालू कर दीजिए, बस रोक के रखिएगा। एक हम लोगों ने इन छत्तीसगढ़ वी हैव टेकन अ वेरी बिग इनिशिएटिव इन द नेम इज मुख्यमंत्री वृक्ष संपदा योजना। एक ट्री आउटसाइड फॉरेस्ट एग्रो फॉरेस्ट्री का एक बहुत बड़ा ड्राइव चालू हुआ है इसी साल से। इट हैज़ बीन लॉन्च्ड ऑन द वर्ल्ड फॉरेस्ट्री डे 21 मार्च दिस ईयर, एंड वी आर प्लांटिंग नियरली 36,000 acres ऑफ प्राइवेट लैंड विथ कमर्शियल स्पीसीज। क्यों? एक प्रोडक्टिविटी की बात मैं कर रहा था, एक उदाहरण बताऊंगा। छत्तीसगढ़ में वी हैव 50,000 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर ऑफ फॉरेस्ट एरिया। जब उसकी हम टेंजिबल बेनिफिट की बात करें, लीव असाइड इनटेंजिबल बेनिफिट्स, क्योंकि टेंजिबल बेनिफिट वो चीज़ है जो समझ में आती है और उसकी बात हमको करनी ही पड़ेगी। कंजर्वेशन अलोन इटसेल्फ फ्रॉम द एंगल ऑफ लोकल विलेजेस इज नॉट प्रॉफिटेबल। तो एक उदाहरण मैं बताता हूँ, जैसे 300 से 400 करोड़ का हम टिम्बर और बैम्बू में रेवेन्यू देते हैं, लगभग 700-800 करोड़ का MFP देते हैं, लगभग ये 1000 करोड़ हो गया। अब मैं यदि ये कहूँ कि 50,000 फॉरेस्ट एरिया से वी गेट 1000 crore of rupees, so what is the productivity per acre? It comes out to be 800 rupees per acre. चलिए, I will add the revenue from तेंदुलीफ also. तेंदुलीफ हम लगभग 1000 करोड़ का करते हैं, but most of the तेंदुलीफ comes from outside of forest area. फिर भी उसको जोड़ते हैं, चलिए, let us take 2000 crore from the total forest area of Chhattisgarh, that is 50,000 square kilometer. It comes only 1600 rupees per acre per year. तो यदि हम अपने फॉरेस्ट का एक पोर्शन को प्रोडक्शन फॉरेस्ट्री के रूप में लें, if we set aside some area, leaving aside hilly areas and other areas which are not good for planting, और उसमें हम यदि इंटेंसिव प्लांटिंग करें तो कार्बन सिक्वेस्ट्रेशन भी ज़्यादा होगा, लोगों को फ़ायदा भी ज़्यादा होगा, बहुत से फ़ायदे होंगे। बट सम हाउ दिस मोनोकल्चर एंड सो मेनी अदर रूल्स दे कम इन वे, और प्रोडक्शन फॉरेस्ट्री सफ़र करती है। मेरा अपना मानना है कि हम ज़रूरतों के हिसाब से रूल्स बदलते हैं, तो सोचना चाहिए इस पे बदलने के बारे में। ये पहली चीज़ हुई। दूसरी चीज़, जो ट्री आउटसाइड ऑफ फॉरेस्ट की बात है, कमर्शियल कल्टीवेशन की बात है, तो हम लोगों ने बहुत प्रयोग किए। वी केम आउट विथ सो मैनी प्रोग्राम्स इन प्रीवियस ईयर्स, लेकिन बहुत सक्सेस हमको नहीं मिली। अब ये लगता है कि हम लोगों ने बहुत सोच विचार के बाद में, जैसे कि इन FRA वी हैव डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड नियरली 3000 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर ऑफ फॉरेस्ट लैंड एज फॉरेस्ट राइट। 3000 वर्ग किलोमीटर मतलब 3 लाख एकड़ हो गया। 3 लाख एकड़ का कुछ एरिया तो वो धान लगा रहे हैं, लेकिन बाकी एरियाज में कुछ ऐसे वृक्ष लगाए जाएं, स्पीसीज विच आर रियली कमर्शियली इम्पॉर्टेंट, और हम ये सिद्ध कर सके कि कम से कम 4000 रुपये पर एकड़ से ज़्यादा मिलता है। तो एक योजना अभी चालू की गई है, इसको थोड़ा जल्दी दिखा दीजिए। नेक्स्ट, आगे बढ़ाइए, और आगे, नेक्स्ट 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 नेक्स्ट, बैक करिए। कमर्शियल स्पीसीज में वी हैव सिलेक्टेड ओनली 4 स्पीसीज, मिलियाडोबिया, टिश्यू कल्चर टीक, क्लोनल नीलगिरी एंड टिश्यू कल्चर बैम्बू, जिसकी इकोनॉमिक्स के बारे में वी आर श्योर कि ये जो है कम से कम 15,000-20,000 रुपये पर एकड़ से ज़्यादा यील्ड देगी। तो ये दोनों इश्यूज मैं रखना चाहता था. जहाँ तक फाइनेंसिंग की बात है, our government has allocated 100 crores of rupees for this scheme, which we have launched this year. And we really sincerely hope that it would be a good success. और ट्री आउटसाइड फॉरेस्ट की बात हो, एग्रो फॉरेस्ट्री की बात हो, क्लाइमेट एमेलियोरेशन की बात हो, कार्बन सिक्वेस्ट्रेशन की बात हो, इन सब में बहुत अच्छे रिजल्ट हमारे इस योजना से आ सकते हैं. थैंक यू.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pandey. And thank you for your presentation. I think it is also probably would be important if you can also probably share your presentation to the audience later, because I think there is so much to learn. And it's also very good to hear that there was domestic funding on climate finance also that came from the government. And I think that's very crucial, because it's not only about global resources and global financing, like reaching out to Green Climate Fund or any other climate funds, but also looking at how public finance could be targeted towards climate finance. So now let's move on to the other panel speaker, Dr. K. Ravichandran, who's currently designated as the Director for Indian Institute of Forest Management in Bhopal. So Dr. Ravichandran, the topic for your discussion is on unlocking research opportunities on climate change and ecosystem-based solutions. If you can just provide your elaboration within 5 minutes, that will be helpful. Over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Respected co-panelists and dear participants. Ecosystem-based solutions are interventions which is primarily aimed at conservation, management and enhancement of natural resources with multiple benefits in environmental, social, ecological and economic aspects. These ecosystem-based solutions are largely focused on two issues: conservation of healthy ecosystems and restoration of degraded ecosystems. We have enough examples from forestry. Various state forest departments are already practicing reforestation, afforestation, eco-restoration. Eco-restoration, when we speak of, degraded lands are being restored in order to improve the biodiversity and provide economic benefits. When we say ecosystem-based solutions, it addresses a societal challenge and also provides benefits to the human beings and biodiversity benefits. Looking at the example of Namami Gange, this has been identified as one of the world's 10 flagship restoration programs by FAO and UNEP. This is a massive scale. 520 billion people are being benefited out of these restoration programs. It addresses all the issues, right from cutting the pollutions, enhancing the forest cover, improving the ecosystems. So it is a very good example which we have. So that way we have the technical know-how. And only thing is, whatever examples, whatever lessons we learned from Namami Gange, that needs to be emulated in other parts of restorative efforts. The other aspect, when we harness the potential of carbon mitigation, adaptation and management, the other major ecosystem which needs to be looked into is the coastal and marine ecosystem. Mangroves, seagrass, meadows and salt marshes. These three are the blue carbon economy. So we need to restore the mangrove ecosystem in a large way. The government of India has already embarked on a mission, MISTI, mangrove initiatives for shoreline habitats and tangible income. Under this MISTI program, the government of India is planning to revive nearly 540 square kilometers of mangrove areas in the country, which spread into 11 states and 2 union territories. Under this program, they are looking at the abandoned aquaculture areas, degraded mangrove areas. Within mangrove areas, wherever gaps are there, that is being restored. And they are also looking at the mud flats and salt pans also. So thereby, when we restore the mangrove areas, mangrove provides excellent carbon sink. And if you look at the potential of mangrove areas, it is 10 times more than the terrestrial forest. So huge potential for climate adaptation and mitigation measures through restoring the mangroves, seagrass and salt marshes. And coming on to the research opportunities, see what is that we can do. Technologies are there. These technologies can be adopted at a lower level, small scale level to a large scale level, like Ganga rejuvenation programs. What is more important is we need to know the impacts of these efforts. That is one aspect. The other thing is taking these technologies to the local level where the local area management plays a major role in restoration of these initiatives. So that needs to be looked into. And lastly, lot many studies are needed to assess the carbon content. The existing methodologies which are available gives a vague estimate only. So what we need to have is local specific, region specific and subnational, national specific volume tables, yield tables, allometric equations for various species needs to be looked into, created, because whatever allometric equations which are having right now, it's all old one. 50 years back, we have created allometric equations. For that, if you rely on that kind of equations, the present day context, it may be losing its relevance. So we need to go for allometric equations for all species, and agroclimatic zone-wise, we need to look into. So since time is not there, I conclude, and if I get one more chance, I will elaborate on the carbon pool issues also. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yes, please, round of applause. I don't want to stop anyone from clapping. Thank you so much, Dr. Ravichandran. And it's really good to hear from you on few of the aspects that you made, on where there has been so many, such good examples that you set in you're talking about where you have had work on the local engagement level and projects with UNDP and FAO, which is really benefiting the poor people and the local people. But I also understood from your intervention that studies are still required, and studies at the level where the new technology can come in and data could be placed. And maybe these are some of the things that you can look at when you're looking at the Green Climate Fund, accessing Green Climate Fund resources. We have a readiness portfolio, as I mentioned earlier. The readiness portfolio once looks at on the capacity building side, institutional side, policy side, but also at the project side. So I think this is something that the government and also the Uttar Pradesh government with the Ministry of Environment can discuss and look into where GCF probably can provide that support on the readiness side, where such policies and such studies could take place. So this is something that's really good to know in terms of highlighting where the gaps are. Now moving on to our next speaker, thanks to you, and moving on to our next speaker, Ms. Mamta Sanjeev Dubey. She's the Principal Chief Conservator of Forest and Head of Forest Forces, Government of Uttar Pradesh. I don't think she needs any more elaboration in terms of her title. Everybody knows her. So maybe Ms. Dubey, if you can elaborate, what are the priority sectors in climate finance in the state of Uttar Pradesh?
Thank you so much. Climate financing is important, as we all understand, because the issue is burning and the finance is either slow or less or difficult to come by. When it comes to Uttar Pradesh, we have been looking at state funds only to fund our activities which are focused towards climate change. When we were preparing the SAP CC, we arrived at a huge amount of something like a few thousand crores. And our chief secretary said that, forget it, you are not going to get that kind of finance from anywhere. So what should we do and what could we do? What we looked at, that the funding was already there in different departments, state funds. All we needed to do was to identify the sectors, the issues, the problems, and find solutions within the existing systems. A lot of convergences were worked out, and we were able to get finance for most of our activities. So one opportunity to look at is whatever is available, we can prepare our schemes, we can route our funds in such a manner that climate action becomes a part of our everyday schemes, of all our schemes. So the DPR was prepared for rejuvenation of 13 rivers, but no separate fund was allotted for this. Government of India had prepared this DPR. The issue was, how do we implement this DPR? In UP, we took up the challenge, and we have been doing our bit for rejuvenating of these rivers by taking our plantations of the state schemes in the 5-kilometer zone from in these rivers, from the river side. So we are taking up plantations in the villages, in the common lands, in the forest lands, along the rivers, and doing our bit there. Similarly, when it comes to, somebody mentioned ecotourism. Ecotourism itself is a very big opportunity to get climate financing for these areas. You may say that this is a contradiction in terms, but it is not. Because ecotourism improves the capacity of local communities to take up climate action strategies within their local areas by enhancing their incomes and by developing their capacities in terms of climate action strategies, and we can help them, and we are helping them there. Similarly, when it comes to forest ecosystem restorations, somebody was talking about ecosystem restoration. In UP, what we have been doing, that within our plantation schemes, we have taken up ANR systems also this year. We are not simply going for tree planting, we are also going for rejuvenating the existing landscapes in such a manner that we rejuvenate our forests. We not only plant, but we also ensure that the landscape regenerates, the existing rootstock is allowed to develop, and the forests are developed. We take up the soil moisture conservation works. Now the question is, can GCF help us? Yes, GCF can definitely help us. It can help us by ensuring that we can take our nurseries to common people. Instead of having centralized nurseries owned by the government, we are looking at decentralized nurseries owned by the Gram Panchayats or the Nyay Panchayats. The whole idea behind that is that if trees are available, the saplings are available close to the villages, the farmer will be more motivated to take up agroforestry. Now, agroforestry and farm forestry itself is a very big vehicle for climate change. In UP, we have been fortunate enough to have a very strong culture of horticultural and agricultural practices going simultaneously. The orchards in Western UP and in Eastern UP as well as in Lucknow are an example of how we have always taken tree planting and agriculture simultaneously. Now, in the initial 80s, we have seen a great achievement in terms of agroforestry. This agroforestry was driven by the availability of industry in that area. Surprisingly, the wood-based industry itself is a carbon negative industry. Again, you may ask me, how is that possible? But wood-based industry ensures that farmers go for tree planting in a big way, and that itself is a very big help for us. Industries helping farmers to grow more timber on their land, the food processing industry helping farmers or ensuring that more tree crops are grown there. So that in a way will help us in carbon sequestration and capturing the carbon. So finance is coming from there also. It is good to have a dedicated financing agency or a finance fund, but these are the hidden areas that we also need to tap. We know we have examples of ITC, which is a carbon neutral industry, essentially because it encourages farmers to plant trees on their land with a guarantee of buyback. And I hope that industry in UP will also do that. Similarly, we also are taking up rejuvenation of our wetlands, especially in the Ganga basin. Now, wetlands, as we all know, captures much more carbon as compared to any other ecosystem. So rejuvenation of these wetlands and ensuring that they are conserved and they are preserved will ensure that carbon sequestration takes place. And that is one area where we will be looking for financing either from any of the financing agencies or anyone else. So we are roping in industry in that area also. So what I'm trying to say is that having a dedicated financing agency or a climate fund is important, but we also need to think a little out of the box and look at the options that we already have available, the options that are already there either through the industries or through the philanthropies. Even the chair mentioned crowdsourcing. And we have had advantage of that while we have not taken anything in cash, but in kind the industry and the people and the school students have come forward in helping us in cleaning the areas. We have had the plog runs, we have had the cleaning of water bodies, and we have had the plantation drive. The plantation drive that we carry out is not it is not an optic exercise only. We encourage and we involve every single department, we involve the schools. So the crop that we are raising, the trees that we are raising, and the hard work that goes into that, the physical work, physical labor that goes into that itself is a part of that funding. So climate action is not something that needs to come from top. Similarly, climate financing is not something that has to come from a single source or maybe more than one source. It is there in our everyday life. Whatever we do, every single thing goes into that. And I'm sure if we all put our heads together, we can solve this problem of lack of financing or the financial gap that exists and do something constructive in the area of climate financing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bay. And I totally agree with you. Climate finance does not have to only be limited to the international resources. And I think it can come from domestic. And as I mentioned earlier, and there are countries who have actually blended country resources with international resources. So there are many opportunities, there are many examples that are globally available, and maybe this is something that India can definitely look into. And I also would definitely like to highlight the points that you have raised, because when we look at, especially for Uttar Pradesh, there are so many areas to work on. And you talked about wetland, you talk about carbon sequestration, agroforestry, ecotourism. Definitely, as a climate fund, GCF only looks at climate projects, not development projects. So whenever we talk to the government, whenever we talk to partners, we always try to tell them, what is the climate angle here? And I think, and definitely the areas that you have mentioned does have a strong climate angle. It's all about narrative. It's all about trying to identify how has climate impacted these sectors. And hence, how do we really come and try to address those solutions and solutions that come from the ground? And definitely where different kind of resources, different kind of support mechanisms are required. And thank you so much again, Mr. Bay. Now let me move to Mr. Anjani Acharya. Okay, thanks. Anjani Acharya, who is the Additional Chief Conservator of Forest. Mr. Anjani Acharya, if you could talk about and probably elaborate on challenges and issues of the state that you would like to highlight in mobilizing these resources through international funding. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everybody. As PCCF and Hoff ma'am has almost said everything which we want to say, but still I would like to repeat or elaborate some more points. First is the most important thing that we need to prioritize forestry sector for GFC. This is a sector which gives adaptation and mitigation, both measures effectively. So that is one thing, first thing. Another is about wetlands. In UP we have 1.2 million, above 1.2 million hectare of wetlands, and fair amount of those in our forest areas also. And they have, as already told, more potential for this carbon sequestration. So that is one thing which need to be. That is one aspect which need to be taken care of. In Ganga Basin, we have developed protocols for wetland management and rejuvenation, and we have developed management plan for 275 wetlands, and Namami Ganga is going to fund those. I think for other rivers, the state, we can have similar things. This rejuvenation plans will go a long way in carbon sequestration. Of course, we will need to have some protocols. One more thing is the carbon locking. Locking should be prioritized. Since if you take the end, you are there. So carbon locking is one thing which can be taken on a large scale. That will increase the demand and supply chain of the agroforestry systems. And in turn, we will have a lot of greening and carbon locking also. So that is another part which can be taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Anjani Acharya, for emphasizing. Working with the GCF for a while. It also has one project that they have been able to access one project from the Green Climate Fund with the Tata Clean Tech. So maybe for Mr. Murthy, if you can elaborate, since you've been a game changer as a direct access entity for India, and zooming into the public sector projects landscape, if you can talk about how has NABARD while working with GCF, what has been your experience and what would you like to share to the partners in terms of when they want to work with the Green Climate Fund? That is one aspect. And also if you can elaborate on what are the policy changes that have been made in recent times on the climate finance that has probably looked at the public sector or things that needs to be made that is difficult for NABARD or for other public finance institutions. So over to you, Mr. Murthy.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. The very first point is this agriculture resilience and addressing vulnerabilities of rural people are the entry points for enhancing the scope of finance. There are two things. The issues, the sectors which were flagged by speakers, earlier sessions, on following sessions, NABARD covers all the sectors and issues together. There is a kind of a canvas. So I got two questions from you. It's a very heavy one. So I'll be addressing the first one, that access to GCF. GCF, we could get funds for the two projects. One is a project from Orissa, from the Orissa government side. It is for the solar pumps and groundwater recharge, of course, in vulnerable areas and tribal communities. There's a pure on the grant side. It's hinging on the adaptation side with co-benefits of mitigation. And the second project is Tata Clean Tech Limited. It's purely on the mitigation side. It's for the solar rooftop. The important point which we need to understand is this: when accessing funds, the single most experience which I would like to share, and this is the same thing which goes to the projects which are in pipeline, whether from SIDBI side or from NABARD side. The very first point is this: how we are addressing the climate risk, vulnerabilities. Otherwise, it would be the as usual, business as usual, or any typical government project. So this is the challenge. And second most challenging is theory of change. Means any projects which we take funding from the outside sources, whether it's the GCF from AFB, there's a strong framework. There's a framework is called, you should be able to do outputs, outcomes, and impact side. The three things are very important. All three things are intricately linked to the climate risk and vulnerabilities. You are going to address it. This is going to be really, it's a technical one. You require a little bit of technical expertise to access these funds. Second one thing is why NABARD access funds from the GCF is what we require. India requires technical expertise in terms of the knowledge, tools, technologies, and everything. through GCF, through our partners, we could able to get the kind of a climate knowledge for NABARD and to our partners. Second point is this kind of schemes which we are, the schemes are many. We are dealing with the Ministry of Environment for Climate Change, then the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Power, then the Rural Development, several departments are there, several schemes are there. Time is, in the interest of time, I would like to be, I don't want to elaborate it, but one scheme definitely, one mission rather, it really fascinating us is Mission Life. If you're able to follow the Mission Life, if you truly integrate all the elements of Mission Life in your program, projects, in our way of action, as at a community level, organization level, individual level, I think we are able to address it. Imagine 1.4 billion people in India, even if you could able to do 5 climatic action points, mentioned the Mission Life, I think we are doing great climate action. That's the mitigation action, we are doing it. Few more things which I would like to take. Natural farming, which Honorable Chief Minister Ji also talked about it. Natural farming, Government of India scheme is there. We are also taking that kind of a schemes. Then one very interesting scheme which I think I'm expected to know, that ICAP, that Indian Cooling Action Plan, which is still in the drawing board, but still came to the press, coming from the Ministry of Environment side. I think it is a huge, on the mitigation side, even from NABARD side, from agriculture side, from the industry side, MSME segment side, I think there is a where we find it a GCF plays a very critical role because where private investments do come into the picture. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. C.R. Murthy, for all the inputs that you have shared and also about your learnings and the new things that you would like to do. Having said that, I think we have now one last speaker who is going to join us, and then we are going to be done with the panel discussion. So now it's Dr. C. N. Tripathi, professor from IIT Kanpur. Sir, the question to you is if you can elaborate and probably share your understanding in terms of unlocking opportunities with Green Climate Fund or any other financial facility, and what type of instruments possibly would India benefit from? If you can elaborate on those, that will be helpful. Over to you, Dr. Tripathi.
Thank you very much. So enough has already been said since the morning. Let me just list it out under 3 or 4 major groups or buckets in mitigation and what you call conservation, adaptation, and resilience, and followed by sequestration and then R&D and capacity building, what we could do. So we know that GCF already has been doing work in terms of scaling and extending this solar rooftop, or rooftop solar. But if we can probably ramp it up, I think a very large potential, and I think there are some numbers of about 1 gigawatt or something can be materialized. And a related research question there is that possibly these panels, if they are not solar panels, which are not used, discarded, if they are not properly repurposed or recycled, they are an environmental hazard which are in waiting. So I think there is a great potential to do some R&D in that. Second thing where already GCF is working, and I'd like to just point it out, that in urban mobility, where in the last mile connectivity, we know that there is a lot stride has already been taken in terms of connecting different cities through metros. But we know that home to metro, still there is a gap. So if that last mile connectivity can be bridged by creating this charging infrastructure, I believe that that can definitely accrue additional potential there. Now, we knew that since the morning it has been emphasized a lot about conservation of the coastal regions, but one thing or one very ecologically sensitive zone which probably has not been talked about or I don't know about that is the Nilgiri forest. We know that there has been a dedicated program to look after the very sensitive Himalayan ecoregion, but if we also can look into the Nilgiris or the similar, there are other very sensitive ecological regions, I think that would be great. The other important issue is that if we can, while ramping up the water recharge programs in the villages, because we know that agriculture is probably at the receiving end. If we can probably use it as a vehicle or instrument or leverage it to do the carbon sequestration. My friend is here from Energy Engineering Department, which we just have got at IIT Kanpur, that we all know that these algae are very efficient way of sequestering carbon. So when we are creating so many ponds and without compromising with the quality of these pond water, etc., if we can use that to sequester carbon, I think that would be something which definitely we could do. And finally, there are other, we all know, this is my feeling, my friends tell me, that with all the efforts, it possibly is a great task to definitely, contain within 2.5 degrees Celsius by end of this century. So we need to have this, our eyes on multiple technologies, and we should also always look for different kind of direct carbon capture, or let's say biomass to gray hydrogen and then moving to the blue and green hydrogen. These are some of the very important areas where a lot of R&D still can happen, and we should not miss it out, and where industry and academia definitely have a lot of role to play. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Tripathi. And you raised very, very pertinent points, which is about repurposing and recycling. I think that's very important. When we look at solar, when you look at different kind of innovation that is coming nowadays and different technologies, I think one of the things that we really need to look into is how do we really look at these recycling plant? I mean, how do we recycle batteries? How do we, when we talk about e-mobility, we talk about solar, there's so many waste that is also being generated. And thanks for raising those points. And also about the new technologies and the areas where R&D is required. I think that's really good points that have been highlighted. Thank you so much on that. So I think we have now done with the panel discussion. I can allow the panel members later if we have time, any time available. But if you allow me, Chair, should we move on to the question answer session? Okay. Sure. Okay, let's start with the question. And if when you are asking the question, please do share your name, from which organization, and then please be very precise. Only questions, and no comments, please. I can see one, sir, in the red shirt out there, and then the one with the mask. Which one? The white? Oh, the white shirt. Okay. Yeah, maybe the white shirt too. Yes, white and so I'm going by colors. I'm sorry because I don't know the names. White, blue, and red.
Hello, I'm Vineet Kashyap. I work for a foundation named Dharma Life Foundation. I'm inspired with all of your comments on.
We can't hear you. Can you put the mic closer and be a bit softer?
I'm Vineet Kashyap. I work with Dharma Life Foundation. It is based out in Delhi. I'm really inspired with all of your inputs on carbon financing. Somehow, I'm a development professional. I travel across India, and still, even now, when on this date, the knowledge on carbon financing is at the vertical level, and I have seen multiple thousands of farmers in India are being exploited, who are progressing to natural farming, and several consulting firms are going on ground and creating MOUs and contracts with them for 5 years, 10 years, and their carbon financing will be provided to them, and they'll get 30%, 20% of the value to the farmers, and 60%, 70% of the fund from that carbon credit will go to the consulting fund which is creating the MOU. So what is the state or private partners are thinking to create a horizontal knowledge system so that the knowledge can be transmitted to the farmers and the ground people, people taking initiatives on ground to adapt into climate change? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think I'll take that question. That's a very valid point that you have raised. But right now what we are doing in the sector of carbon financing is at a pilot stage. And we are having, because there is no defined carbon market as such. In the morning, the Secretary MOEFCC said that now they are working on it. And once it becomes established, these middlemen, as you can say, they can be eliminated, and the farmer can directly deal with his these carbon credits in the market. The reason is because right now the carbon financing markets are not very clear or very well-defined markets. And the process of getting carbon credits is a little cumbersome because first we have to assess the number of trees or the practices that are being done, then these have to be validated. For this validation, we require some agencies and the farmer cannot naturally go and validate. And it is because of these validators that the farmer may be getting a little less. But I'm sure this is at a very nascent stage but developing very fast. Once Government of India establishes this market, the mechanism will be there where this, instead of getting only 30% or 40% of the credits, he will, or the money for the credits, he will get the whole amount and a little fee will be given to the validator because ultimately the validator has to go to the field work that will be there, but most of the profit will go to the farmer himself. You can rest assured that the government is very sensitive about it and we are looking at this aspect also. Sure.
You alluded to certain cases where farmers are being misled into signing MOUs. Do bring it to the notice of concerned authorities if you have specific knowledge about it. Because these things would need to be controlled and probably farmers obviously would need a lot of input. But if you are in the knowledge personally of certain things like this, do bring it to the knowledge of people, the authorities at large. Because somewhere along the line, these things will have to be very properly taken care of.
And one more point, as we move towards stabilizing these markets, we are looking at, instead of maybe individual farmers, if the FPOs or the cluster approach goes there, the possibility of farmer getting duped or exploited will be much less. That is another aspect that we are looking at.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bay and Mr. Awasthi. Yes, there is the white shirt first and then the red shirt. Yes, please.
थैंक यू वेरी मच। आप सभी भारतवंशी लोग यहाँ बैठे हुए हैं, तो एक बार भारत माँ की जयकारा लगाएंगे। आप दोनों लोग मुट्ठी बंद कर लें और मेरे साथ बोलें, भारत माता की, भारत माता की, भारत माता की। थैंक यू वेरी मच। मैं भारत विकास राष्ट्र सेवा संघ का संस्थापक हूं, फाउंडर ऑफ राष्ट्र सेवा संघ। बहुत अच्छा लगा आप लोगों के विचार सुन करके। आज मैं सुबह न्यूज़पेपर में देखा तो ये पता चला कि आज इंदिरा गांधी प्रतिष्ठान में समारोह हो रहा है, तो मैं भी तैयार हुआ और अवनीश अवस्थी सर का स्वागत करने के लिए मैं भी आ गया। बात करेंगे जलवायु संरक्षण की। तो जलवायु में दो शब्द हैं, जल और वायु। तो मेरे भी दो कंसर्न हैं, एक कंसर्न सुझाव का है और दूसरा सवाल का है। तो सवाल से पहले मैं एक सुझाव देना चाहूंगा, जल से पहले वायु की बात करूंगा। हम लोग सब लोग इस धरती पर रहते हैं और ऑक्सीजन को लेते हैं, कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड छोड़ते हैं, ये बहुत सामान्य सी बात है, सबको पता है।
I'm apologize to stop you, but can you please come to your question, please? Straight to the question.
Yes, मैं बहुत बड़ी बात है उसमें, मैं जस्ट लोगों को बताना चाहता हूं। तो साल में मैं जो करता हूं मैं बता रहा हूं कि अपने जन्मदिन पे, अपने वाइफ के जन्मदिन पे, अपने बच्चों के जन्मदिन पे एक पेड़ मैं जरूर लगाता हूं। 5 अप्रैल को मेरी धर्मपत्नी जी का बर्थडे था, मैंने लगाया। तो मैं जस्ट इतना संकल्प आप लोगों से करवाना चाहता हूं कि क्या आप सब लोग पूरे साल जो ऑक्सीजन लेते हैं, जो उधार लेते हैं, उसका जो रीपे है, वो आप अपने जन्मदिन पे एक वृक्ष लगा के, एक पौधा लगा के कर सकते हैं क्या? कर सकते हैं? थैंक यू। तो आप सभी लोग अगर करेंगे तो 140 करोड़ भारतीय हैं, 140 करोड़ पौधे हम एक साल में लगा सकते हैं और उससे कितनी ऑक्सीजन जनरेट होगी आप सब लोग ज्यादा कैलकुलेट कर सकते हैं। एक चीज दूसरा, अब मैं सवाल पे आता हूं मैम। सवाल ये है कि कभी बाढ़ आ जाती है, कभी उफान आ जाता है नदियों में, तो बड़ा कंसर्न जो ये है कि हमारे जो बादल हैं, कहीं बरसात ज्यादा करते हैं, राजस्थान में बरसात कम होती है, तो क्या हम कोई क्लाउड कन्वेंस टेक्नोलॉजी पे विचार कर रहे हैं कि जहां पे बादल कम हैं वहां पे बरसात करवा दी जाए, जहां पे ज्यादा बादल हो रहे हैं वहां पे बादलों को विघटित कर दिया जाए और बादलों को ट्रांसफर कर लिया जाए? ऐसी कोई टेक्नोलॉजी पे क्या हम विचार कर रहे हैं क्या? एक क्वेश्चन है हमारा। थैंक यू वेरी मच।
Thank you so much for your question. And as I understood from you, you're talking about cloud seeding. I don't know if anybody would like to talk about that.
I'll give you a reply. We have a professor from IIT Kanpur. Cloud seeding has been tried at IIT Kanpur. How successful it did be economically is an issue, but experiments have been done with cloud seeding. So it is still in an experimental state. Next question.
Okay, only one question because we don't have time. And just for the red shirt, please, if somebody can give him the mic. And apologies, we can't take any more questions after that because we are running out of time. So please be very brief on your question, and we would like to request no comments, please, just the question. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Sanju Soman. I'm from Kerala, co-founder of CEO Sastra Foundation.
We can't hear you.
Am I audible now? All right. So I'm Sanju Soman from Kerala, CEO of Sastra Foundation. I extensively work on capacity building youth on climate action. Now, the International Labour Association organization says that by 2030, we're going to create 20 million jobs in the green area or green jobs. Can we get more GCF funding for more courses in colleges, post-graduation courses, UG courses on climate-related areas, so that by 2030, the youth of the country is built, or they have the capacity to take up action at various scales? So the question is enough GCF funding going to ACE or education or empowerment? Thank you.
Thanks so much for that question. Maybe I can take that question from the GCF. And as a regional manager working within the region and looking at the readiness portfolio, yes, we do have, it's all about what is the need of the country. We're a country-driven approach organization. GCF is all about country approach. So whatever is the gap in the country, those are the areas where we work upon. So if you look at our readiness portfolio, there is a readiness preparedness support program. It's on the website. You can go and look into the document. And that document kind of provides you all the details of where the support can be accessed. So which means we can look at policy reforms, you can look at curriculum, you can look at all kind of aspects wherever there is a need for the country. So definitely the needs are identified and are based on what the priorities of the countries are. You know, if the priority of a country is also to look into the curriculum of universities, then definitely yes. If not, then no. So it all depends on what is the priority of the country, what would they like to highlight on the climate finance sector, and where they would like to access GCF's resources. So I hope I've answered your question. And sorry, we can't take any more questions now. Maybe for the closing remarks, I would just like to move it to our chair, Mr. Awasthi. Over to you.
So, thank you, Anupaji. You've been quite clear in how to take forward this entire issue of unlocking opportunities with Green Climate Fund. And I would just say in 2 lines that we have to start from the bottom as well as take things from the top right to the bottom. And I still would like to stress the need to get each and every one of us connected to this entire aspect of how to control climate change, and how each one of us, whether a student, whether a farmer, whether a housewife, whether a small MSME businessman, whether somebody who's working in a factory, whether a government servant, whether a teacher, or whether anyone who's even planting one small sapling, how each one of us can contribute to making our world a much better, a greener place. We were also talking about water conservation. We were also talking about Jal, Vayu, all of that. I am sure on the last thing I would like to state, I have a wife who's a singer, and she keeps saying and she keeps singing that पेड़ में भी भगवान है, हवा में भी भगवान है, जल में भगवान है, हमारी मिट्टी में भी भगवान है. अगर हम सबकी पूजा करेंगे तो निश्चय ही हम अपने देश प्रदेश को आगे ले जाएंगे. ये जो एनवायरनमेंट का जो एस्पेक्ट है, इसको कहीं ना कहीं हमको सबको विचार करके अपने रूट्स को समझकर उसको और मजबूत करना और जड़ों को मजबूत करके क्लाइमेट चेंज को कहीं ना कहीं रोकना है. जो आपका लक्ष्य है 1.5% टेम्परेचर को कंट्रोल करने का, we will do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Awasthi, and thank you to all our panel members. I wish I could give more time to hear from all of you, but we have limited time, so we will definitely be extending the conversations outside the panel discussion. And thank you, everyone, and a big round of applause to all our beautiful delegates.
Thank you once again to the Forest Department, to the Ministry of Environment and Forest for the state, and Madam Dubeji and Ashish Tiwari ji for coordinating and making it so lucid and very clear. Thank you.
सभी के लिए तालियां बहुमूल्य विचारों के लिए. और अब बारी है स्मृति चिन्ह प्रदान करने की. मैं श्री अनुपम गुप्ता, APCCF नोडल ऑफिसर गवर्नमेंट ऑफ उत्तर प्रदेश से अनुरोध करूंगी कि वो मंच पर आए और इस सत्र के अध्यक्षता करने वाले श्री अवनीश कुमार अवस्थी जी को स्मृति चिन्ह दें. साथ ही सभी वक्ताओं को भी स्मृति चिन्ह प्रदान करें. ये उपहार मिलेट्स का है, मोटे अनाज जो पोषण भी देते हैं, स्वास्थ्य भी देते हैं और भूमि को भी स्वस्थ रखते हैं. श्री मयूरेश पतांगे जी, डॉक्टर RK सिंह, डॉक्टर K रविचंद्रन, श्रीमती ममता संजीव दुबे जी, श्री संजय श्रीवास्तव जी, श्री अंजनी आचार्य जी, श्री CSR मूर्ति जी, श्री SN त्रिपाठी जी, और हमारी मॉडरेटर मिस अनुपा लामिच्छाने जी. एक बार जोरदार तालियों से अपने हृदय का आभार व्यक्त करते हुए इस सत्र के सभी वक्ताओं को विदा दें. इसी के साथ ये तकनीकी सत्र अब समाप्त होता है. एक छोटा सा सत्र इसी के साथ जुड़ा हुआ है. Will 2023 be the defining year of India's climate tech startups? इस विषय पर जानकारी देने के लिए हम आमंत्रित कर रहे हैं श्री अभय सिंह, को फाउंडर एट एकी फूड्स, और श्री आनंद जैन, फाउंडर एंड CEO एट एरीम. आपसे अनुरोध है कि कृपया मंच पर आएं. श्री अभय सिंह और श्री आनंद जैन जी. अभय सिंह जी और आनंद जैन जी आ चुके हैं, मैं तालियों से चाहूंगी इनका भी स्वागत करें और इन लोगों से अनुरोध करूंगी कि अपना प्रस्तुतिकरण दें। सबसे पहले श्री अभय सिंह जी, को फाउंडर एट एकी फूड्स। आपको स्लाइड चेंज करने के लिए रिमोट चाहिए, वो उपलब्ध नहीं है। आप शुरू करें।
Hello, check. Very good afternoon to everyone present here. My name is Riddhi Vora. I'm part of Avana Climate and Sustainability Fund. I'm here to moderate the discussion and introduce the two speakers for today. Firstly, we have Abhay here, Abhay Singh. Abhay is the co-founder of Eki Foods. Abhay is an engineer from IIT Bombay. He could have taken several different routes, but he has chosen to solve the massive food security challenge posed by climate change through Eki Foods' patented technology, which produces everyday staple Indian vegetables at affordable prices and thus unlocks climate resilience in agriculture. Abhay, thank you for joining us, and over to you to share more about what Eki is building and what is the technology.
Hello everyone. मेरा नाम अभय सिंह है एंड हमारी कंपनी जो है वो करीब 4 साल पुरानी है। आप पहला वाला, आप ये जो इमेज देख रहे हैं, हमारी कंपनी राजस्थान बेस्ड है। हम लोग कोटा में हमारे फार्म्स हैं। द फोटो दैट यू सी हियर इज एक्चुअली वन ऑफ द फोटोज ऑफ आवर फार्म्स इन राजस्थान। आप जो इजराइल, नीदरलैंड्स, चाइना, इन सब के प्रोडक्शन कैपेसिटीज देखते हैं, we grow the same kind of produce, in fact more. And on top of that, this is all done on a barren land. So we talked about soil conservation, we talked about saving water, we talked about improving our yield. What we're able to achieve right now is, we have been able to grow completely free, residue-free produce, residue-free vegetables on a barren land. So, एक प्रोड्यूस जो ऑर्गेनिक से भी ज़्यादा अच्छा है, दैट टू एकदम बंजर ज़मीन पे, और वो भी ऑल ऑफ दैट इज एक्चुअली प्रॉफिटेबल एट मंडी प्राइसेस, जो हमारा होलसेल का मंडी प्राइसेस होता है। प्लीज नेक्स्ट। मैं अभय सिंह हूँ। मेरे साथ माई को फाउंडर इज अमित। वी बोथ आर ग्रेजुएट्स फ्रॉम IIT बॉम्बे। वी डिड ऑलमोस्ट 4 years ऑफ जॉब, एंड उसके बाद up in 2017, we started working on a problem, and the problem is very simple and very complicated at the both ends. The problem is, as per FAO, we say that agriculture currently contributes about 17% of greenhouse gas emissions. That's first. Second, it also estimates by 2050, we'll lose 90% of soil. Now, our population is only increasing. It's not going to decrease. And we have to make sure that we are able to feed our population by 2050, and even now. So we'll go into the problem much deeper. Abhi, as of now, we are able to grow tomatoes. We are considering the example of tomatoes. We are able to grow them at 4 rupees a kilo. As per Indian standards, as per the data of National Horticulture Board, we grow about 10 tons per acre annually. And it requires about 300 liters of water. So in order to grow 1 kg of tomato, you require 300 liters of water. And ये उगता है 4 रुपए में। मंडी में, when it reaches, it's about 30 rupees a kilo. Now, the produce that you get from the typical conventional farming, the farmers that they produce, there's exorbitant use of pesticides and harmful fertilizers. Now, people have been suggesting hydroponics as a possible solution. In hydroponics, the cost of growing is roughly about 20 rupees a kilo. Now, if you're growing at 20, you can't be selling at 30 in the mandi prices. So that doesn't work. And in fact, most of the produce that actually grows in hydroponics gets sold at 200 or 300 rupees a kilo. So it's not inclusive at all. It doesn't get to the last or every state of the society. Now, what we have developed as a technology in collaboration with IIT Jodhpur, which is patented, and not just in India, we have a PCT application. Basically, it protects our patent across multiple countries, in 162 countries. And we are able to grow Indian staples, tomato, at 6 rupees a kilo, and that too, using only 30 liters of water. So, from 300 to 30 liters, and all of that without the use of soil, without the use of availability of any kind of arability of soil. We actually do it on a barren land. Now, there are three parts of our technology. First is the chambers. Second is the plant science that we developed over the past 3 years. And the last one is automation. Now, how our chambers work is. So how our chambers work? Friend. How our chambers work? Thank you. So we are in room, and we have been using this air conditioner to regulate the roots of, regulate the temperature of this room. Now, what has happened is, if you go into a car, you will have to switch on the AC. And that's true with also soil, with also plants. If we talk about monsoon plants, if we talk about summer crops, they all need a specific temperature for them to grow. Now, what our chambers do is, this is actually a real image of a farm. And what is happening is, the brown net that you see is actually the root of tomato plants. And this gray colored box is the chambers. Now, what has happened, if let's say the outside temperature was 50 degrees Celsius, 50, we can create a 25-degree temperature for the root zone. And this is done without the use of any electricity. So the point that I mentioned, you have to switch on this AC to cool down the room. If you used our material instead of air conditioners, you will not need any source of electricity to manage and regulate the temperature in this room. And that's what we have done for our plants. A plant requires a specific root zone temperature. And that's what we're able to achieve without any cooling mechanisms. In fact, we have been growing this in Kota. In Kota, it's like very extreme weather. It goes to over 3 degrees Celsius in winters and 50 degrees Celsius in summers. And we have been growing our veggies for the last 4 years in those extreme conditions. Now, we've actually improved our technology even further. Previously, our technology deployment required about 1 crore rupees, like 125 lakh rupees per acre. And we were growing at 8 rupees a kilo. Right now, we are able to deploy our technology at about 96 lakh rupees, roughly about 1 crore per acre. And we are able to grow this at 6 rupees a kilo. And the extent of technology has been proven in multiple regions. So you see Panipat farm, Talada, Nanta, these are Rajasthan area, and Panipat is in Haryana. And all these farms have been operating for over a 2 years period. So we have been growing this kind of produce for over 2 years, and the research has been carried out for over the past 4 years. Now we are expanding to not just India. We are setting up almost 30. We're also setting our first farm in Oman, in Abu Dhabi, because those people also do not have any kind of access to availability of land. All their land is completely barren. So what we have been able to do with the plant science, so we provided the perfect temperature, perfect environment for the plant. The second thing we had to do is understand how plant needs its nutrition, how plant can manage its growth. And we figured out, let's say if you wanted your tomatoes to be 10-year, we can do that. If you said that you want a calcium fortified tomato, we can do that. If you said, if you want your cucumber to be iron fortified, we can do that. You will not need to go to a pharmacy or doctor saying कि I'm a calcium deficient. He will just say कि आप ये सब्जी खाइए, which is the natural way of doing it. And apart from this, we are currently setting up all these farms in remote rural areas, employing all the unskilled women in the near region. In fact, we currently have about 100 unskilled women working in our farms in different localities. And this is all done on a barren land. I might remind you, this is all done on a barren land. And compared to an arable land, completely fertile land, we are able to grow 18 times more, from 10 tons per acre to 180 tons per acre. Now, I like to tell you, this is, so we say that farmers' income doesn't make sense. A farmer typically makes about 50,000 to 1 lakh rupees an acre annually, if it's a good farmer, if everything goes well. There's a timely rainfall, there is no shortage of pest management, or there is no attack of pest management. If everything goes well, the farmer makes about 1 lakh per acre per annual. Now, with our case, with our technology, the farmer makes about 36 lakhs, almost 36 times more on a barren land. And I might tell you, it doesn't matter कि कल को बारिश हो रही है या फिर flood आ गया हो. In fact, all our farms we in fact not just use rainwater harvesting. We also recharge ground aquifers. So let's say when there is more water available, as in there was an extreme rainfall, the water collected actually gets recharged, actually gets put down into the ground aquifers. That's how we recharge our water. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abhay, and a big round of applause for this amazing technology, which is actually creating climate resilience and ensuring food security for coming generations. We will now be hearing from Anand. Thank you, Anand. Anand Jain is the founder of ERM. Anand is a Yale MBA who worked as an investment banker on Wall Street and then came back to India to pursue his passion for solar energy. Anand has worked with some of the prominent names in the solar and financial service industry, such as Lehman Brothers, Sun Edison, KPMG, and more. ERM is building a full-stack technology platform to increase rooftop solar adoption among MSMEs and small businesses, which can help reduce their electricity costs by up to 70% and deliver social, economic, and environmental outcomes. Thank you, Anand. Over to you to share more about ERM.
Thank you, Riddhi. Appreciate it. Can we have the slides?
And I'll request you to just wrap in 5 minutes, please, because we're a little bit overshot.
Sure.
Thank you.
Can we start from the beginning? This is not the first slide. So, we've all heard about solar energy, and solar has been happening in India for since 2008-9. It's about 15 years. And I've been in solar since then. I was in the US working in New York as an investment banker, and I really got excited by what Mr. Modi ji was doing in Gujarat. He was a CM at that time. So I came back, met him, and got my first project allocated. So I've been doing solar since then. I've done about 2,000 megawatts. But along this time, last 15 years of journey, what I saw was that rooftop solar was not really taking off. And in this audience, if I ask anyone what are the key problems that one faces with regards to rooftop solar, and the two critical problems are, one is of actually maybe three. So how do you find someone who can install the system, install a good quality system, and then how do I finance those things? So that is what ERM, so we conceptualized and we started ERM to really take care of this whole problem of, enabling rooftop solar ecosystem. And that's what ERM is all about, if you see this slide. And we are fully, tech-enabled. We have multiple tech platforms. So first one is the installer platform, which sort of helps you get a good quality installer, which will install the system on your roof. Number two is quality platform, so that there's a whole 100 list checkpoint that we, run the plant through, which enables a good quality system. And then we have a monitoring platform. After the plant is commissioned, we, real-time monitor it. So really you get a good quality system. And apart from that, as I said, credit is the other problem. So we have an in-house NBFC does financing for these systems. And we also have partnerships with banks through which we enable this finance. So really it's like a full stack end-to-end solution that helps you get a high quality solar rooftop. So, I mean, the opportunity-wise, it's massive. I will just give it, it's too much detail on the slide, but to just say, it's just in MSME space, businesses, the whole size of the opportunity can be about $500 billion. So it's massive, and solar has maximum impact on climate. If any space or sector within the entire climate, solar has maximum contribution and impact. And so that's why we are present and enabling that. And this is really the right time to go solar. One is the whole massive tailwinds that you see for solar space. There's huge amount of policy action and government interest and also foundations. A lot of interest in this space to enable solar energy. And microside, one of the most amazing things about this space is that even if you take a loan, the savings are more than the EMI, right? You just really don't have to pay anything from your pocket. So if you install this, you start to save about 30, 40, or up to 70% of your energy bills. And that takes care of any investment cost and any financing cost. So literally, you get a high quality system without having to pay anything, right? So it's really an amazing time for this space where both, macro and micro, or sort of top down and bottom up, are coming together beautifully. And we, as we are saying, this is the next 10, 20 years is the age of solar. So do we have more time, or we can take questions? Yeah, I think so. You can just.
First of all, big round of applause for Anand and what they are building at RM, which is helping MSMEs, which are one of the most vulnerable segments, actually transition to rooftop solar. If anyone has any questions for Abhay or Anand, we can maybe take one question. We have a question. Can someone?
First of all, thank you to both of you for delivering a wonderful talk. Myself, Dr. Shilpa Pandey. I'm working as scientist at Birbal Sahani Institute of Paleo Sciences, Lucknow. Basically, my question is to Abhay ji. As you have talked about the barren lands, we are also working on the climate change aspect. So many times I also found that in the coastal areas and definitely in inland areas also, we find a lot of land cover, land use changes are taking place day by day. People are talking about the wetlands if we talk about the climate change mitigations, but nobody is taking care of the wastelands or the barren lands. But for the first time, I'm hearing from you that you have turned these barren lands into the fertile lands. So these barren lands, as you have said, a lot of production has been taken up. Recently, you have talked about the only tomato crop. So my question is, in these barren lands, before you start, anybody who wanted to use the same kind of thing in the barren lands, have you tested the soil? And if so, did you find any differences between the soil, which is the fertile soil and the barren soil? And definitely there might be a difference. So how you have raised the productivity of that barren soil? So that is the most important thing which I would like to know for future perspective. Thank you so much.
So the straight answer is we actually don't use soil at all. The image that you saw, the roots, if there was soil, you would soothe you would also, if there was soil, you would actually can't soothe the roots. So what we do is something that we can also set up our farms in Jaisalmer or Bikaner, where there is complete ray, there is complete sand. And our idea is, it shouldn't be a requirement of soil. Like we already believe in monoculture. Actually, we already follow monoculture. We do a large setup of a single crop. So now, why don't we use a barren land, completely barren land? So we don't need soil at all. We just need a space to set up our infrastructure. Yeah, we do. Yeah, actually, we have very successful stories about that.
Thank you, everyone. Unfortunately, because of paucity of time, we will have to end here. I think the session was titled, Will 2023 be the defining year for India's climate tech startups? And I think Abhay and Anand here are definitely demonstrating that that is surely the case. Thank you so much, everyone.
और अब बारी है स्मृति चिन्ह प्रदान करने की। मैं श्री प्रणव जैन, DCF एनवायरनमेंट डायरेक्टरेट गवर्नमेंट ऑफ यूपी से अनुरोध करूंगी कि वो श्री अभय सिंह और श्री आनंद जैन जी को स्मृति चिन्ह के रूप में मिलेट्स के स्नैक्स दें। आप सबकी तालियों का साथ मिलेगा तो सभी का उत्साह बढ़ता है। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। और अब आज का अंतिम सत्र प्रारंभ होने जा रहा है। इसका विषय है पोटेंशियल प्रॉस्पेक्ट्स फॉर ग्रीन क्लाइमेट फंड। इसकी अध्यक्षता करेंगे डॉक्टर KV राजू, इकोनॉमिक एडवाइजर गवर्नमेंट ऑफ यूपी। हम सभी वक्ताओं से अनुरोध करेंगे कि वो मंच पर आकर अपना स्थान लें। डॉक्टर KV राजू, इकोनॉमिक एडवाइजर गवर्नमेंट ऑफ यूपी। और को चेयर करेंगे श्री तन्मय कुमार, एडिशनल सेक्रेटरी, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एनवायरनमेंट, फॉरेस्ट एंड क्लाइमेट चेंज, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया। मॉडरेट